Okay, so welcome. Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to today's session. As I mentioned earlier, I wanted to go over some few of the lab demos for you guys. So at least as a network guy, when you do take this course, you at least learn something about the practical aspect of what networking is all about. So today's session is just some of the basic networking implementations that you probably would have to, endure within your profession at some point. So I figured I'd get you guys, I get your feet wet, basically. So at least when you get out of my class, you have a bit of a knowledge, a bit of an understanding of how to set up basic networks, how they really work, how they come together, what you need, what you don't need, some of the rules of the game, key informations that you need to get you really well adapted to your profession. So anyway, that's what this design project's all about. I'm gonna mute you guys. I'm gonna ask you guys to unmute so I can ask some few questions. And then based on that, I can use that to set the platform going. Okay. So okay, you guys unmute yourselves and hello. Hello.
Hi there.
Hi.
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 Hi, sir.
Okay.
So.
How many of you are behind your laptop with this application installed as I suggested? Well, I asked you guys.
Yeah, please, behind my laptop.
Okay.
Same here.
So my guess is a number of you do have your machines in front of you, right? You're behind
Yes, sir.
your PCs or your laptops or what have you. The guys behind their cell phones, there's way too much feedback, and that's one of the things that I don't really like about asking you guys to turn on your mic. If you're not talking, turn it off. Be polite, turn it off. If you're not talking, just a little courtesy, that's all. Obviously, some of the guys don't really care that much. Okay, I'm gonna shut you guys off again. So please, I can hear myself.
Thank you, Godfrey. What I do my X-ray, I see a easier.
Okay, so now I can hear myself. Some of you just don't have that little courtesy. It's like it doesn't matter what the instructor says. You still want to turn your microphones on when you don't have anything to say, and then we hear all kinds of feedback in the background. You yelling, chatting, singing, whatever it is. I don't know. So I'm gonna just keep you guys locked up, mute or whatever. Then so I can hear myself talk. You just pay attention to what I'm doing, follow along, and then we can all get this over with. Okay. So, anyways, if you do have the diagram application installed. The idea here is to, I actually use this application to, and then a few other ones, either this Visio or some other ones that I do have. I do use them generally to plan out my network first. When it comes to networking, it's always good to plan your network that you want to implement first. Please have an idea of how you want to put them together in terms of topology or topology wise. It's always a good idea to do that. And then identify some of the key devices that you want to be incorporating into the design as well. So I tend to use some of these design or diagram applications to help me kind of like get a bit of an idea of what exactly I want to put together for either a client or for my organization, my business, or my enterprise, or whatever it is, you know. So we want to start out with something simple. And like I said, this application does a pretty good job with some of these things. The cool things that you'd find on this application are the various networking devices that you'd have from your switches, your computers, your network devices from the routers and various layers, layer threes, routing devices, the cloud itself, just icons of some of these network devices that I use to sketch network plans can all be found within this application. You also do have your telephony stuff, telephones, icons, miscellaneous stuff. What else? Just a whole bunch of stuff, flowchart, circuits, just a whole bunch of stuff, flowcharts, assorted ones, UMLs, and what have you. It pretty much has it. To access them, just click on the drop down menu, and you should pick, then you can have a whole list of network devices or network device icons that you need to put together your design plan for your businesses, for your designs or whatever, for your projects, okay? And then you do have your lines over here, which are your cables. So this will indicate the cables for various connectivities that you need. And then text for typing, and other cool stuff. Okay, so we do have a number of things over here. Okay, and that's the most important part, the fact that you do have some of these icons to help you sketch out your design layouts. Okay, so the scenario here, I'm going to start with the scenario. The scenario here is you are a network engineer, and a client walks up to you and says, "Hey, I just had preferably a small business owner walks up to you and say, I just rented or built this building for just my office, for my private, business office, either a consultancy firm or whatever it is, or other services that they might want to offer. And I need a place, I need a network in place. I need a place network. I need, obviously, I need my computers, just a network, basically, switches, routers, access points, wireless connectivities, cabling, power points, the whole shebang, I just need that so that at least when I walk into my office space and I have my employees come around or come to work, they would have workstations, allocated for them to go sit back and actually do some really good work for me. So that's a scenario. You do have the small business that have basically hired you or consulted you to help them set up their small, enterprise or their small business that they want to grow, to a big organization someday. And they just need an initial network in place. So as the engineer, whatever, and you've been asked, you've been tasked to come up with some of these things. One of the first things that you want to be doing first, or ideally professionally, is to kind of like sketch a layout, uh, put a design layout of the kind of network that you want to implement for the client. And ideally, you put it together so you can use that for your proposals, for your presentation to the big guy. So just so he can have an idea of what exactly you want to do for them. Um, and then based on that, if he agrees on your design plan, and then he can write you a check, for you to uh, get started. The other thing, another good thing about having a design layout of your network implementation or network project is that you get an idea of cost-wise how to kind of like quantify your quotations or your proposals for the client. You get an idea of how many switches you're going to be needing, how many routers you're going to be needing, whether you're going to need a server, how many PCs are going to be installed, how many laptops, how many access points, and based on what kind of settings you're gonna put together for the client. So that in all gives you an idea of how to really put together your budget. That's why it's very, very important to plan your network implementation. So this helps you out with that a lot. So we're gonna assume that the client is a small business and he wants a network in place. So you as the engineer, you come up with a simple flat network for him. There's not much of any departments involved, just a flat one unit office, for a different accounting firm or whatever it is. So the design layout over here for what we're gonna go through right now is just simple flat network where you're gonna have one switch, a centralized switch with one server, a router, 5 PCs, and then 2 laptops, one printer, and then an access point. Okay, just to make it simple. And then as time goes by, I would add up a lot more advanced features to it to make it much more robust, much more segmented, and all that good stuff. Okay, so it's just a basic flat network that you want to put together as a proposal for your client. Are we good, guys? So to start out with, let's pick our devices that's going to form our design plan. Okay. Now to do that, you just have to go. I'm going to start with the switches first. So I'll just click down here or the drop down arrow, click on switches, and I should have a whole bunch of switches show up. I'm just going to pick one of them. I'm going to pick the work group switch. So hover your mouses on the devices or the icons, and it will tell you the names. So like that, for instance, small hub, that's a 10 base T hub, and that's your work group switch. So I'm going to use this. And then you do have other devices as well, routers, firewalls, etc., etc. But I want to start out with a work group switch, okay? So, and to pick it up, you just click on it, pick it up, and then drop it on your workspace. So this is your workspace. This is where you put your design layout. It's called the workspace, okay? So that's the first switch, or that's the central switch you want to basically put as the central point for all the devices to connect to. And then next, we're gonna go for computers. So I'm gonna go to computers, and then I'm gonna pick up some desktop PC, 5 of them. I'm just using 5 just for illustration. Maybe the client has about 20 or 50 employees. It's up to you to work that out. I'm just using 5 to start out with, okay? So I got 5 PCs. Trying to arrange them nicely, and then 2 laptops. So for laptops, the somewhere right over here, that's a laptop right here. So I'm going to pick that, same approach, and drop them. So I have my 2 laptops and 5 PCs, desktop machines with my switch. And then I'm going to need a server. This right here is a server. It's a file server. Okay. It could be used for either storage purposes or a web server or whatever it is. But the clients want a server as well within organization so they can handle most of their internal documents within their localized network. So you're trying to incorporate one of those servers into the design. I'm going to pick it up and then drop it in here. So I have my server right over here. And obviously, as I was mentioning, probably need a switch as well. So sorry, a printer. So 1 printer. So at least all staff can easily print, their documents, their work documents or whatever to that particular printer. And then finally, we're going to introduce our router. But generally, routers are only needed if the organization wants to access resources outside. If the client doesn't really care so much about, like for instance, you go to Makola, the women at Makola with their shops or whatever, I don't think they want internet in their shops. They just want to handle a point of sale system to handle their inventories for their stocks, and then hopefully, get records of how much sales was made on a given day, find out what items are moving faster, so at least they can replenish those or restock them whenever they need it, or just more or less have a way of reporting on what exactly is going on within their shops. Also generates, daily sales and blah, 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 so they can account for how much cash or profit was made in a given day. So something like that the client doesn't need internet. The most all that they need is just maybe a server, which could be just a regular PC somewhere housing that point of sale system, that POS system. So it could be something like that. That's scenario over here that we have. Okay. So the person selling stuff within my color shop and you just want a network in place. You don't really necessarily want internet. But we'll get to that later. Okay. Like I said, internet is mostly required when you want to access resources outside of a given network. So if you have a client who doesn't want to access emails or social media stuff or what have you, you just want internal resources accessible, then there's no point introducing a router. Okay, but we'll get to that later. We'll add a router later. For now, it's just a basic network in place, not internet. So a basic network. The internet is also a network, but it's more related to interconnected networks. So we are dealing with just a flat network for now. Okay. All right. So now let's hook up the cables to them. And the cables are these lines over here. So these are your lines. Oh, let me introduce an access point, by the way, before we move on. For me, wireless devices, So to pick up an access point, you can go to network device again. Actually, it should be, and let me see. So that's another localized location servers. I think it should be in the, let me check right over here. Nope, it's not here. It's usually switchers, access point. Okay, I'm going to pick a wireless route over here. So that will provide us with wireless connectivity. So at least he has that image of wireless, antennas pointing. Okay, great. So that will serve as our wireless connectivity point. Okay. All right. So now let's look at the cables. So for Wi-Fi services, this will be the go-to guy. So to connect the cables to the devices, to your central node, switch over here, you pick up your line, which is, this will be your network cable. So it's a line, and then you just drop it, and it'll give you an arrow, and you try to extend the arrow to point to the device that you want to connect it to. So the same thing applies to the other ones. Just pick it up, connect it. Pick it up. Oops. Sometimes it can get a bit tricky. Connect it. So basically, it's like connecting your Ethernet cables from your PCs or your computer devices to your switch, or you run the cables basically. So I'm just gonna finish it all up, and then I'll see where you guys at before I proceed with the other implementations. And then finally, you're gonna have your router to your switch. Oh, your wireless access point, your AP to your switch. Okay, so I have this now. And I'm gonna put just a label over here, a note over here. Flats, I'm gonna call flats network for small business clients. So a flat network, that means that it has no, segmented departments. It's just one unit that handles everything. Okay? There are no segmented departments that you need various other switches or configure VLANs for virtual, departments or virtual networks within the business. Just one flat network. Okay, that's the assumption over here. All right. And then I'm going to put some other labels. Okay, before that, let me ask you guys where you are, just to make sure we are on the same page before I continue. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys to unmute yourselves. So, are we all on the same page? Are we all on the same page?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Okay. That's wonderful. As long as we are all on the same page.
Oh.
Okay, go off again. All right, so I'm glad everybody's on the same page. That's good. Now the next thing is, okay, let me introduce the router now. So the assumption is the client also wants some kind of connectivity outside, probably for, accessing social media stuff, or just to get news from Ghana Web or Joy FM, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So at least let's just introduce a firewall router. I want to pick one of these firewall routers and place it over here. So this is your router over here, and then your router will connect to the switch that would form the gateway LAN for your network. And then we're also going to introduce, since we introduced the router, which means we want to get access to the internet, let's try to incorporate an internet diagram as well. Internet diagram is, let me see, I can pick up internet diagrams. Internet diagrams should be miscellaneous, Nuke, computers, cloud. I'm looking for a cloud. Cloud. There we go. So we got clouds over here. So the cloud represents the internet. Okay. Let's run our cables. Switch. And obviously a cloud to the route. So this could be your ISP. This is the ISP's end. So let's start labeling them. So this is your ISP. ISP, in this case, let's use Vodafone as the ISP. So Vodafone, as the guy that's going to be providing you with the internet, okay? And then you have your setup in place. Okay, so now from here, the next thing we need to start thinking about is an IP scheme, because the devices that are connected to the switch needs to have IP addresses, okay? So at least you need to also, as a network engineer, you need to plan out what kind of IP scheme you want to be using for your project, for your client, okay? Since this happens to be a small business, we're obviously going to have to settle with a Class C IP address, which has a maximum of 254 host IP address that it can lease out for per given network, okay? So let's just stick with that. So we're picking a Class C IP address, and then we have to determine which of the which network domain we want to use, and then hopefully that would address our connectivity need for all of our devices. Okay, so I want to go with, as the engineer, I want to go with obviously a Class C 192.168.10. I want to use that. Sorry, I want to use that 10. I want to use the 192.168.10.0/24 IP scheme. So that's my IP scheme, which means all of my devices should have the first 3 octets of the IP address the same. Should have the same number format for the first 3 octets. Is the last one which needs to be changing for each of the various devices. Are we good? So that's my IP scheme I want to be using. Okay, which means every single device over here must have a 192.168.10. Any other number. The first 3 octets must be the same to make sure they are all on the same network address. Okay. /24 just means you have 255.255.255.0 as the subnet mask. Okay, and the subnet mask basically defines the collision domain for your network, or the domain in which device can actually talk to each other. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, there are certain key devices on a network here that must have static IP address. You know, IP address can either be allocated by statically or dynamically through a DHCP server system, okay? In this case, certain devices should and must be configured with static, and other devices are purely dynamic. In this case, a server, a printer, an access point, a router must have a static IP address. And then host devices, terminals, or whatever can be put on purely dynamic IP configurations through a DHCP server, okay? So I want to basically assign my server a 192.168.10. So the first 3 octets are the same. The last octet has to change. Now I want to use 5 and then /24. So that's the IP address of my file server. Okay. Now for the printer, I'm going to use 192.168.10.6. Obviously /24.